So we've looked at age, but also we can look a little bit wider at demographic profiles, at sort of life stage. And they have challenges and positives, implications for whether that person makes a great care worker or they have other pressures on them. So I found 5 demographic groups that most care staff could be put into. The first one, probably the mainstay of most care organisations, is that primary breadwinner, single parent, young mum type. It's a very female workforce, of course. And so we find most commonly this kind of younger female demographic, which, as I mentioned previously, is tapering slightly as we go through the next 10 or 15 years. There may be restrictions here on government support benefits, so sometimes they might be restricted by the amount of hours they can work if they're on some kind of government support or income benefit. They may have restricted availability because of young children, because of other things that are going on in their lives. And they might have a challenge running or affording reliable transport. So that might restrict their ability to reach your care setting or reach their clients. But generally this group are under pressure. They have a lack of support, and so that can manifest itself sometimes as a lack of flexibility and a lack of and somewhat unreliable. But often it's not their fault, it's just that their support structure is weak or non-existent. So that's a kind of one classic group. Another group would be under 25s, often perhaps more commonly found in urban areas. Maybe they're choosing this through some sort of altruistic reason. Initially they're thinking of another career somewhere else in a related profession. But this group are often highly mobile, looking to be promoted away from the front line. And of course younger people generally have a less affinity, if you're talking about aged care settings, then less affinity with the older person unless they had one of those characteristics we looked at earlier. The third group is what I would call a homemaker. So this is someone perhaps in their mid to late 30s into their 40s, and often what happens is people settle in a suburban area and they develop a lifestyle. Perhaps they have a partner who's working and they might have a dog or other volunteering or something else going on in their life, and what they're looking for is local work. And they really want to be appreciated for the work that they're doing. We'll come on to appreciation a little bit later, but they're looking for not just the money, it's something that fits with their lifestyle. And the challenge again, children might still be around, so they might have weekend restrictions. And we find this group and the primary breadwinner, weekends are often a challenge because that's time to be spent with the children and the family, and that always causes problems for care providers. The fourth group I think is a very exciting and often forgotten group, and that is the active retiree, so someone who's returning to work after children have left home. And so here we're talking about people typically in their 50s or older, and what they want out of a role, and they're not necessarily looking for or even aware of care work, and this becomes a sourcing challenge to us, which we'll look at later. But they're looking to give something back to the local community. They want to stay active. They want to meet new people. Often perhaps the kids have left home and their social circle has shrunk. They might have retired from work, meaning that their colleagues at work have gone, and so they feel lonely almost, and care work can give them back a sense of purpose and a sense of connecting with people. We do find this group often quite resistant to training, and certainly the word career will potentially turn them off. They've done that, they don't want to necessarily do that again. But they want to be active, to have a reason to get up. And what's great is that care work really hits all of those buttons. We just need to say that and not use the same language as we would if we were recruiting a younger demographic. You might find this group as well lacks confidence, lacks potentially trust. And so one of the best ways of connecting with and recruiting them is a face-to-face connection in the community rather than an advert. And the fifth group are those migrants or ethnic groups, often really the bedrock of many frontline care markets, really holding everything together. And they're usually hard working, they work long hours, particularly if they're away from home. then you find they don't see a distinction particularly between the weekend and the week. So employers see them as a very flexible and hard-working resource. But they do tend to be clustered into often urban areas. And so you might be fortunate enough to have these kinds of groups in your recruitment hinterland, or perhaps if you're in a rural area, you may not. But they are a very interesting group, but quite affected by immigration policy, by global changes, and sometimes their home country might be on an economic boom and it makes sense for them to move. So they're quite mobile. They require more support, particularly if you're asking them to come over from another country just to work for you. So not without a challenge, but often a really important subsector of our recruitment demographic.